The ongoing legal saga surrounding the Florida rapper known as Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demons, and his associate Cortland Henry, referred to as Bortlen, has captured significant attention due to its complexity and high stakes. The case revolves around the 2018 murders of Christopher Thomas Jr., known as Juvie, and Anthony Williams, known as Sack Chaser, with both Melly and Bortlen facing serious charges. The prosecution alleges that Melly orchestrated the killings, while Bortlen is accused of being complicit, with the state aiming to try them together to bolster their case. However, recent developments, including a no communication order, have added layers of intrigue to an already convoluted trial. This narrative explores the case's intricacies, the strategies of both the prosecution and defense, the evidence presented, and the broader implications for those involved. The state's strategy hinges on trying Melly and Bortlen together, a move seen as advantageous for several reasons. Prosecutors believe a joint trial increases efficiency, avoiding the need to present evidence repeatedly in separate proceedings. More crucially, it creates an environment where the co-defendants might incriminate each other, strengthening the state's case. By keeping Melly and Bortlen in the same courtroom, the prosecution hopes to exploit their conflicting narratives, particularly since each has previously pointed the finger at the other. The prosecution's approach is grounded in the belief that the guilt phase of the trial, which determines whether the defendants committed the crimes, is identical for both, as the charges stem from the same incident. However, the penalty phase differs, as the state is seeking the death penalty for Melly but not for Bortlen. This distinction complicates the defense's efforts to sever the trials, as a joint trial could muddy the waters for each defendant's individual case. The defense, on the other hand, argues that severing the trials would allow Melly and Bortlen to better deflect blame onto each other, potentially creating reasonable doubt. A joint trial risks a united front from the prosecution, where evidence against one defendant could taint the jury's perception of the other. The defense's preference for severance is a tactical maneuver to isolate each defendant's narrative, giving them a better chance to argue their innocence independently. This tension between joint and separate trials underscores the high-stakes chess game being played in the courtroom, with each side vying for procedural advantages that could sway the outcome. Central to the prosecution's case is the evidence surrounding Bortlen's actions on the night of the murders. Cortland Henry arrived at Memorial Hospital Miramar in a car riddled with bullet holes, carrying the bodies of Juvie and Sack Chaser. His appearance raised immediate suspicion, as he was wearing a fresh shirt, suggesting he had changed clothes, and tests revealed gunshot residue on his hands. Specifically, forensic analysis found one particle characteristic of gunshot residue and one two-component particle on his left hand, with two two-component particles on his right hand. While not conclusive proof of firing a weapon, the presence of residue suggests he was in close proximity to a discharged firearm. This evidence, combined with Bortlen's behavior during his police interrogation, forms a cornerstone of the prosecution's argument against him. During his interrogation, Bortlen's account of the night's events was inconsistent and unconvincing. He claimed he was driving from a recording studio in Fort Lauderdale, taking I-75 and 595, when a sudden drive-by shooting occurred. According to Bortlen, he ducked down to avoid being hit, nearly crashing the car, and was unaware of the details of the attack. However, police found no shell casings, broken glass, or other physical evidence at the scene he described, casting doubt on his story. When pressed, Bortlen grew defensive, insisting he was telling the truth, but offering vague responses like, "I don't know," when asked about critical details, such as how shell casings could have disappeared. His refusal to provide a clear answer when asked if he would identify the shooter, if he knew their identity, further eroded his credibility. His body language, particularly shaking his head instead of answering directly, signaled to interrogators that he was hiding something, reinforcing their suspicion of his involvement. Bortlen's apparent lies contrast with Melly's own statements, which have also come under scrutiny. In the first trial, which ended in a mistrial, Melly implicated Bortlen, suggesting he was the one responsible for the murders. This dynamic of mutual accusations plays into the prosecution's hands, as it highlights the potential for both defendants to undermine each other in a joint trial. The state argues that Bortlen, facing the prospect of life in prison, may feel compelled to testify against Melly to lessen his own punishment, especially since he is not facing the death penalty. This pressure could lead to a repeat of the finger-pointing scene in the first trial, where conflicting narratives muddied the waters but failed to secure a conviction. Adding to the case's complexity is the recent involvement of Melly's ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, who has emerged as a key witness. Hamilton had been out of the country since Melly's first trial in 2023, raising suspicions of witness tampering. Her return to the United States and subsequent arrest at Miami International Airport by U.S. Border Patrol agents marked a turning point. Court records indicate that Hamilton was ordered to testify in the first trial, but had avoided doing so. To secure her release from Broward County Jail, she agreed to testify in the upcoming retrial, a development that could prove devastating for Melly. The prosecution alleges that Melly used jail phones to tamper with witnesses, including Hamilton, leading to additional charges that carry severe penalties. These charges include witness tampering, directing criminal activities, solicitation or conspiracy to commit tampering, and unlawful use of a two-way communication device. A conviction on any of these could result in a life sentence, even if Melly is acquitted of the murder charges. The witness tampering allegations have significantly restricted Melly's privileges in jail. For months, he has been barred from using the phone, a restriction his mother, Jamie King, has publicly decried as unfair. In an interview, she argued that her son, who has not been convicted, is being denied basic rights afforded to other inmates, such as phone access and mail delivery. King's emotional plea highlighted the toll the case has taken on their family, describing the jail's treatment of Melly as inhumane. She recounted a hearing where they attempted to address the mistreatment, only to learn that the judge lacked jurisdiction over the jail's internal policies. This lack of oversight has fueled the defense's argument that Melly is being unfairly targeted, a narrative they hope to leverage in their appeal for bond. Melly's legal team has been proactive in seeking his release on bond, proposing that his record label, 300 Entertainment, cover the cost. They have assured the court that, if granted bond, Melly would be placed on house arrest, wear an ankle monitor, and be monitored by round-the-clock security. This proposal aims to counter the prosecution's portrayal of Melly as a flight risk or danger to the community. The defense also points to Melly's lengthy incarceration, over 2,300 days without a conviction, as evidence of unjust treatment. Despite a glimmer of hope when one of his 6 charges was bonded, a judge ruled on May 12, 2025, that Melly must remain behind bars until the retrial begins in September. This decision has left his supporters, including his mother, in limbo, waiting for a written order that could clarify his status. The defense has also sought to cast doubt on the prosecution's case by highlighting inconsistencies in the evidence. For instance, they argue that the absence of a recovered firearm undermines the claim that Melly or Bortlen carried out the murders. Melly's lawyers suggest that the real perpetrators, presumably responsible for the drive-by shooting described by Bortlen, would have taken the weapon with them. Additionally, text messages between Melly and Hamilton from the night of the incident are being used to support his claim of innocence. In these messages, Melly described being chased by another car and expressed concern for his safety, implying that Juvie and Sackchaser may not have been in the vehicle at the time. The defense argues that these messages align with a drive-by scenario, not a premeditated murder orchestrated by Melly. The prosecution, however, remains confident in their case, bolstered by physical evidence like the gunshot residue on Bortlen's hands and the testimony of witnesses like Hamilton. They also point to GPS data and other digital evidence that they believe ties Melly to the crime scene. The state's decision to file additional charges related to witness tampering reflects their determination to secure a conviction, even if the murder charges do not stick. These charges not only increase the potential penalties, but also paint Melly as someone willing to manipulate the judicial process, further damaging his credibility. Public reaction to the case has been polarized, with Melly's fans and supporters rallying behind him, believing he is being unfairly targeted. Social media posts, including Bortlen's cryptic tweet after the mistrial, "Mind games don't work on people like me," alongside a handshake emoji, have fueled speculation about potential deals or betrayals. For many, the case is not just about the murders, but about broader issues of trust, loyalty, and the pressures of the legal system. Melly's mother has become a vocal advocate, using interviews to humanize her son and highlight the emotional toll of his prolonged detention.